Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Space Snacks. And my guest today is Shayna Hume. Hi, Shayna. How's it going?
Hello, good morning.
I am very excited to talk to you. We recently became friends through a class that we're both taking, and I just learning about your background just gets me excited about the future of space. So, can you share with our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So there's a long answer and a short answer. The short answer is that right now I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I am studying entry, descent, and landing, or EDL.
Oh no, I think you froze on me. Shayna, are you still there?
Because everything. Can you hear me right now?
Oh, you froze for a second there on me. So I
Oh,
don't
no
know
worries.
if no, I got EDL and then everything else froze.
Oh, that's just too bad. I'll have to re-explain my favorite thing in the world again.
Yes, please.
Um, Yeah, so I do EDL, which is entry, descent, and landing. And for me, that means that I look at planets that have atmospheres and I try to figure out how new technologies can help us to land better and to use those atmospheres versus just rocket powered landings that don't have any flight capabilities.
Ooh, that's really exciting. It makes me think of when we land the Mars rovers, and when what was they had the parachute come out and then
Yeah,
yeah.
so they had the new landing system at the time. That was one of the first times I remember paying attention to space in the news, actually, because it happened while I was in high school. They had this really unique landing system that the goal was it to have a bit of a soft touchdown instead of just tossing the rover onto the surface of Mars and letting it bounce to a stop. Their goal was to very slowly lower the rover to the ground in comparison to all those previous missions.
I remember watching that and getting super excited. How about you? You said you were in high school. Did that really kind of leave an impression with you? Has space always been your thing?
No, no. Oh my gosh, not even a little bit. I was a relative latecomer to space. I didn't play with Legos as a kid. I wasn't like that nerdy space kid with a telescope. I always really liked math and science in general, but I kind of didn't think all that much about space some of the time because I didn't see much of it happening. In my childhood, I grew up in that awkward little oasis of the early 2000s where there wasn't a ton of new space stuff happening. And so I didn't even really know if we had a future in space. When I saw Mars Curiosity and the Sky Crane and all of the new technologies that were being tested, that was one of the first times that I realized that we still had a space program and we were still going to do some amazing things. So in high school, I wasn't really sure, where I wanted to go with college. I actually wanted to be a writer for a pretty long time. I was really involved in the journalism program at my school, and I was just a huge journalism and newspaper nerd. I was so into that stuff. I love writing, even now. But then I took an astronomy class, and it's a little bit cheesy, but that class totally changed my life. There was a planetarium, and in class every day, we would just start off by sitting in the planetarium and having the lights go down and just talking before there were quizzes or tests or homeworks or anything. And that teacher in that class really just made me feel that space was a safe and creative and loving place to be. And as soon as I was done with that course, I was just like, okay, yes, what next?
That is so great. So that was in undergrad, when you were off in undergrad that you took that class?
That was right at the end of high school. I was so lucky. My high school had a little planetarium. It's a science charter school, which is weird because I wanted to be a writer, so I'm not sure how that happened. But I was at the science charter school and I took an astronomy class for fun, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And but what I love about that is that you were mentioning how you still write and how I want to talk about science communication and how important that is and how do you feel empowered to some extent to take that creativity, that love of writing and stuff, and combine it now with your love of space.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today without my communications and writing abilities, hands down. My first year in undergrad, I told people that I knew how to use Photoshop because I did from my journalism program, and they had me make all of the logos and all of the pieces that they needed for our AIAA club that year, so our rocket team club. And because of that, I got a leadership position my freshman year in college, all because I knew how to use Photoshop.
Mhm.
And so these skills that I gained in communications and in graphic design totally powered the beginning of my career. Now it's amazing because I can connect with people who are interested in STEM education and in diversity initiatives. And I can give talks to elementary schools and middle schools when I travel. And so I use all of these skills that I didn't even know would have a place in my career one day. And they are completely central to, almost half of what I do.
I love that because I have a similar story, but in television productions. In college, I
Hmm.
took a television productions class, and the teacher was fabulous. And she was like, "You want to learn how to edit?" It was my senior year. I was just about to graduate, and with a degree in science, environmental science. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so she taught me how to be an editor. And then I went home, and I ended up working at a TV station for 2 years as a video editor for the news. And then when I went off to grad school, I thought, "Oh, I'll never, that part of my life is done. I'm not gonna use those
Hmm.
skills." But man, I use my video editing skills all the time and thinking about
Yeah.
storylines and how it all comes together. And I think that that's when we're talking about our skill sets and our passions, the things that we love, all of that can play a role in our, pursuit of space and space exploration.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the first two internships I ever got offered, well, they were both at NASA. I had been applying to NASA for years, getting turned down for years because I was way too young and I had no experience. But then I got these two offers at the same time. And one was for a journalism internship at NASA, and one was for an astrobiology internship at NASA. And when I turned down the journalism one, I was so scared. I was like, oh man, that would have been my last chance to write. Little did I know it was gonna follow me all the way through.
Yeah, but being able to be a good writer is something that is so valuable, and it's unfortunate that I know for me in high school, my English teacher kind of labeled me as a bad writer, and it's something that I've struggled with ever since. This whole idea of, well, I'm not a good writer, and so it's
Mm.
haunted me to some extent, and I just want to tell all the kids out there that everybody's a good writer in their own way, and figuring out your how to use your skills and your language to communicate whatever your passion is important. And writing is one of those things that you can get better at. And so I definitely have improved my writing skills over time. Going back to, I want to talk about space exploration and where would you want to go if you could go anywhere? First of all, do you want to be an astronaut?
Mm.
And where would you wanna go if you could go anywhere?
Okay, so I always tell this one little bit. Of course, I would want to be an astronaut, but being an astronaut has never seemed like a career in my lifetime. It's not really something that you can pursue all by itself. It's more like winning the lottery. You do a career in space that you love, and you work on things and projects and programs that you love. And then, if the astronaut thing happens because you just happen to be qualified for what's going on in the world, then yes, I would take it wholeheartedly. That would be the adventure of a lifetime, but it would not be my whole career because I know I would want to come back to Earth and keep helping other people and just keep doing as many other things in education and in science and engineering afterwards. So, yes, obviously, but with
I love
complications.
your answer. I loved it because that was spot on with having to have your career and your passion, and it is winning the lottery. It is that.
Mhm.
For everybody that applies, the percent that is taking is so, 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 so small. And if you
Oh,
happen
yeah.
to win that lottery,
I mean, it's great. You get to serve your country in an amazing
Mhm,
way. You get to do something really cool. Now, on the commercial side, if I have the option to choose to be an astronaut and it's not a
mhm.
lottery, yeah, I'm going for that too.
So I want to ask you, where would you want to go? Would you want to go to the ISS? Would you want to go to the moon? Would you want to go to Mars? Is there somewhere else that is like deep in your heart that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so can the answer be yes to all of the above?
Yes, but which would be your top one if you could choose?
I would just have to go for Mars. I'm a huge, Mars person. The last couple of years, I've really grown up with the, Mars by 2030, Mars or bust, all of that mentality. I would love to be able to set foot on another world because I think when you looked down at the ground, it wouldn't look all that different than a lot of the analog and the training missions. It would just be a different color dirt than you're used to. But the moment that you turn around and you see a different sky and a different version of the sun, I just think that would be the most extraordinary experience. Yeah.
I thought about that, and for me, Mars seems daunting, but the moon, I'm like, I'll take the moon, hang out for a
It's a
little
1 week
bit."
trip. It's no biggie.
Exactly. Get to see Earth rise, hanging out, and then, head home, like you said. Whereas
Mhm.
it's not that I wouldn't turn down going to Mars. It would be, you
Mhm.
know, like you said, if the opportunity comes, I'm taking it. But I think for me growing up, my first love has always been, the moon. And but you actually do research on how to land on Mars and do that
Which
successfully.
probably won't help me all that much during the landing sequence when I'm freaking out internally. I doubt that the knowledge of how it works will make me feel better.
So true, right? And so when you're hanging out on Mars, what would you wanna eat and why?
Ooh, I mean, the classic, of course, potatoes. I think there should be like an every year a Martian holiday just dedicated towards Mark Watney, where you make potatoes in every single form. You
Oh.
have latkes, you have hash browns, you just make a little bit of everything that you can with them. That would be an amazing, horrible for your stomach day that I would love.
I have a confession. When I was a kid, and I still do, I love the potato in any form. And my
Yes.
family for Christmas gave me a book on how to cook the potato in, every way possible. Because when I was a kid, I loved to cook, and I must have been probably 16, and they gave me that cookbook,
Mhm.
which today I'm like, oh, this is very handy. I wish I still had it. I don't anymore. And so thinking about food and having a meal and the community and bonding that is associated with that, who would you want to share that with and why?
Oh, on Mars, who would I want to share all of my potatoes with? That is a
You might n you
question.
might you might not wanna tell them that the menu is just potatoes. Or
Potatoes can
maybe.
do some amazing things. I mean, we can bring in some sweet potato fries. Like, I mean,
Oh.
I went to college. I'm an expert on how to cook the potato.
Oh, yeah.
Who would I want to share it with? Well, this morning I was talking to a COO actually of a nonprofit space organization. And over the last couple years, I've been trying to engage more and more with people on the organizational side, people who make the dreams happen. One of the people who I have been incredibly lucky to meet, but who I would die to meet again, would be Gwen Shotwell. She is just incredible. I respect people who can take what seem like impossible plans and execute them because it is just so easy to come up with a great idea and leave it. And I say that as someone who has come up with great ideas and abandoned them before. So the women, especially, who really inspire me are just the ones who can drive on through, who can make things happen. And I feel like I would love to sit down with Gwen and eat potatoes on Mars and just say, okay, you did it. What now? What comes next in your career?
I love that answer. So, if you're listening, Gwen, you've got someone to go eat potatoes with on Mars. Women in space and space exploration and thinking about diversity and inclusion. I know this is something that is important to you. I know that mentorship and making opportunities are important. What have you learned so far in your early career?
Mm. About how to be a good mentor?
I think yeah, about yeah, how to be a good mentor and your thoughts on women in space.
Yeah,
Or
so
aerospace, you can think of that in general, aerospace. Mhm.
sure. So it definitely depends on what part of aerospace you're in, but there are some parts of aerospace that are still very heavily sectioned off and hard for women to break into. And sometimes it comes down to the processes that start at a very early age. It depends what major you get, it depends what colleges you go to. Those are all things that immediately begin to contribute to who hires you. And when it comes to new space and the startup field, I think it can just be incredibly difficult to be a woman because of the lack of respect for work life balance. A lot of those companies, they really just want you to dive in and commit. And on one hand, well, I am happily willing to be, a corporate servant essentially and just serve some greater good purpose if I think the project is worth it. I think it would be pretty terrible for people to have to say no to working on amazing space projects just because they value their own time and health and stuff like that. And so it's kind of a vague answer, but I see a combination of factors acting that make it difficult for women to be represented very well in space companies. And I would love for that to change in future. I'm a big fan of people who run programs like Space for All or Space for Women. And I think it's really important to provide those women with mentorship so that they know if they commit everything and they put their whole life on the line for this career, that there will be people waiting for them to catch them on the other side. So some vague roundabout thoughts. It's still a problem. There's still a little bit of a wall or a ceiling or whatever you want to call it. But on the upside, I know a lot of women who push and break through that wall pretty regularly. And what I try to do with mentorship is be accessible. You can be introduced to a mentor, and it won't mean all that much if you have a formal half an hour conversation and then you never talk to them again. And you're just like, man, they set me up for this mentorship thing, but it didn't go anywhere. We had a talk, and then it never left. So when I act as a mentor for people, I try to step down to a more relatable level and just say, hey, like, you need help with your classes, you need help figuring out your internship. And I try to stay a little bit more of a regular presence in their life because I think it shows them that I want them to be there. That it's not a token thing that I'm like, no, you had better be here to stay.
Now, it's I love again, I feel like so wise, so young and so wise. Um, do you have a mentor or mentors? Do you have many mentors? I know when I was your age,
Yeah.
it wasn't really a thing, especially for women. And so it's one of those now I'm kind of like, I want a mentor. But I was listening to our homework for
Mm-hmm.
the new right stuff, and I don't know if you've listened to the chapter where both
Mm-hmm.
us are taking a class with Loretta Whitesides about being space kind, and it talked about a coach versus a mentor. Have you got to
Mm-hmm.
that section yet?
I've started, yes.
So, and she was talking about how, the distinction of, a coach is somebody who's going to help get you places, and a mentor kind of gives you advice and inspires. And I thought about that. I was like, oh, that's a good distinction. And thinking about you in your career and where you are, um, do you have the mentor? Do you have a coach?
Yeah, so I think I've had lots of mentors. Like you said, mentors inspire you.
Mhm.
So I feel lucky because I've had a lot of people who inspired me. I had my first boss at NASA who was just an incredible human and who really, like, I was 17 years old or 18, maybe I just turned 18 when the internship started, but it was the summer right after high school.
Okay, I
And he
gotta
was
laugh
just
right
so
there
welcoming.
because you're like, it took me a while to get a NASA
I'd been
intern.
applying for
So,
4 years.
but you're telling me you were 18. I was thinking, okay, in college she was applying and stuff. But you're like, oh yeah, no, I didn't get in until I was 17. But you started applying when you were 12. Is that what you're telling me?
14. When I was 14, I was just like, this is cool. NASA's obviously sci fi and futuristic. I should start applying with my not even a resume.
I love that. I love
um,
it.
Yeah, no, I was so lucky, but I also was also very bossy and nosy. Like I just kept applying, I was very hard-headed. If I had been any more hard-headed, I probably would have just been annoying. And I think that's okay. You got to push your way into where you want to go. And I totally pushed at that age. I was like, this is happening.
Well, are you
Um,
still pushing now? Do you feel like because I think that you're right. And one of the things that NASA wants to see is people who keep have persistence, who are resilient.
yeah.
That when you get told no, you're gonna come back and say, well, here's me now. Will you take
Yeah,
me
well, I
now?
mean, I just applied to be an astronaut this past spring, and I know they're going to say no because I'm young and it's my first time and I don't have any work experience. But that's okay. I'll apply the next time too, and that's the point. You just keep going
Yes.
at things that you want. But yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that is so true. Those of you that are listening, I can see that some people are leaving a comment and just saying space is for everyone. Let us know you're
Hmm.
here. If you have a question, please put it in the chat and we'll get to it. But definitely let us know that you're out there and where you're listening from. And
Yeah.
so when we're talking about, uh, all of this stuff is amazing, and thinking about diversity in space, access, and all of those stuff. When you're going into your career, do you want to be a research professor
Mm.
and help other people kind of in the same way that you are being helped going through your PhD program, or would you like to work in corporate?
So I want to be in industry.
Mhm.
I want to be in industry or I want to be in government and public policy. And I'm not sure where it's going to take me. But although, people in academia have been incredible mentors to me too. I had those NASA mentors, I had internship mentors, and now I have my advisor who's one of the best humans and advisors I've ever met. So
Oh.
they make a big difference in my and other people's lives, but I don't think that I want to be in academia. What I really want is to focus on the immediate exploration of space and on how, in these next few decades and the next phase of humanity in the 21st century, how we can ethically explore space.
Mm.
Many countries, we're all going right now. There will be lunar bases, if not by us, by other countries, very, very soon. And so I think it's really important that we not just go because we want to keep up with them, and that we not just go because, of some nationalistic idea that we have to maintain our dominance in space. I think it's really important to approach space the right way. And so I think, part of what I want to make my career in is looking for programs that are excited about innovation and exploration in the private sector, and then developing my network and my personal value system so that I can help those programs do so ethically and think about, okay, if we're in this for the long haul, if this is the first step of the rest of humanity's exploration in space, what is most important for us to do? Like, how do we want to set the foundation? So
You
I
know,
want to do that somewhere in the private sector or in government.
that's fantastic, and I gotta say,
Yeah.
you have it so together. Are these conversations that you're having with your peers? Is this the because I just know that when I was your age, I wasn't talking or thinking about those kinds of things in the same way. And when I hear you thinking critically about your career and the impact that you can have, it inspires me and where we're going to be going with space exploration. And so is this
Yeah.
something that you and your peers talk about and engage in?
Yeah, no, it actually is a pretty regular conversation, which I feel lucky to have people who want to talk about this with me. The interesting thing is that right at the beginning of everything happening with COVID, these conversations exploded. I was trying to have these conversations, and I had a few of them, usually at conferences. At conferences, all the space people get together and they just talk about what they see for the future, which is an amazing high. It's the best experience. But when all of this started and we were all stuck at home, people started hosting webinars and snack shows, and they started hosting talks. And that really has spurred me on. The last few months, everything that has been taken away in life that we're not able to do has left a big vacuum. And I think people have been using it to think about, okay, once we're back to space as normal, what do we want to do next? And so these last few months have been just wonderful. I'm actually part of a dialogue that just concluded recently with Frank White, the author of The Overview Effect. And every Wednesday, people were coming together and talking about space in the age of COVID and what was likely to change, and if people were going to work together better after this. And that was the kind of optimism that I think I really needed. It made me think, okay, forget the realism, forget the skepticism, because I'm a huge skeptical person. I'm always like, if something can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. But if everything were to go right, how would I want it to happen? How would I want my personal life and my career and space to all interlink? And so, yeah, I've been having these conversations a lot, and it's the people who I've been having the conversations with that have made me hold these opinions by showing them to me and by inspiring me.
That's really I keep saying it's fantastic, but it is.
Yeah.
Thinking about how these conversations and the people you're interacting with have started to change you and your perspective, and the
Mhm.
big thing to me is language, the language we use,
Yes.
and how language is important. And just thinking about how where we were before pre-COVID, COVID, and then that vision of where we want to be, and thoughtfully thinking about where we want to
Mhm.
be post-COVID. I think that those are valuable conversations. We
Mhm.
have a question for you, and this
Yes.
is from Ethan, who says, how do you find a mentor if nobody is offering to be one? So the idea of, do you wait for a mentor to come to get seek you out, or do you seek mentors out?
Sure, and I'm so glad you gave me a chance to answer this live on this, because I saw it out of the corner of my eye, because I couldn't help but glance over at all the comments, and I was like, okay, I gotta go answer that via chat afterwards. So that's perfect. Yeah, no, so no one ever told me, hey, can I be your mentor? That was never a thing. And we never had a formal mentor relationship. No one was like, all right, Shayna, I'm your mentor now, clearly. I describe them as a mentor in retrospect because I fought to be around them and to learn from them, and because they inspired me. It's never, it's very rarely something formal where they're like, all right, I'm now going to step you through life. So you should focus initially on teachers. You should spend extra time. You should volunteer for organizations. Volunteering is a really powerful thing. When I was a kid, my parents made me volunteer at the library, and I wasn't such a big fan of it at the time because I just had to go reshelve all the books that people messed up. But what it taught me is that you can get a job anywhere if you're willing to do it for free. And then as soon as you have that first foothold, you are good to go from there. So find a space organization, look up nonprofits like Space Foundation. Look for all of these space people like you that run programs like this. As soon as you start talking to people and getting involved, you'll start having a specialty, and then those people will want you to start being included more. And it's this amazing snowball that you go from being someone who doesn't know anything about space and you're just like, I can write paragraphs well. And then suddenly you're a space person and you're in the space community. And the amazing thing about the space community is that it's very loving and inclusive. And once you're there, people don't want you to leave. So I think what you'll find is that the mentors aren't going to be someone you approach. They're going to be someone that you just start to interact with regularly and that you're learning more and more from, to the point that you know you can ask for their help for the next step.
Fantastic, and, that is so true. When I look back at my life, again, it's not that I never had a formal mentor, but I definitely had
Mhm.
people who I learned from and looking back and thinking about how they did mentor me.
Yes.
I really resonate with what you said about volunteering and the power
Mhm.
of free. If you have the time to be able to do that, it can open up amazing doors. And so,
Mhm.
speaking of NASA, I did an internship at NASA because I was like, "I'm willing to come and work for free." And they're like,
Mhm.
"Come on." And
Yeah.
my sabbaticals, all of my sabbaticals I've had, I'm like, ASU, I just finished my sabbatical this past year. I was like, "Can I come and just hang out and work and learn for free?" And they're like, "Come
Yes.
on." And
Yeah,
so
and obviously, there's real life problems. You can't make it your full-time job, but
mhm.
if you can even dedicate that little bit of time.
Yes, absolutely, even if it's an hour or 2. And so, so much
Mhm.
power in that. I wanna ask you, we were talking about food and stuff. Do you like to cook?
Yeah, especially the last couple years since grad school and not being such a scavenger like I was in undergrad, I've started to cook a lot more.
Do you have a favorite thing that you like to cook?
I'm gonna give a quick shout out to my mom because I know she'll freak out when she sees this after work. Recently, I've been learning how to make challah bread, and I am not traditionally a good cook or a good baker. I didn't grow up that way,
Mhm.
but my mom loves making that kind of stuff. And on the bread train during quarantine, I was like, well, instead of making a sourdough starter like everyone else, why don't I learn how to make some braided challah? And so that's become a little bit of a weekly hobby of mine during this, which has been so delicious.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. And also the connection back to your mom. My mom was a
Yeah.
fantastic cook. And so she really inspired me with a lot of the things that I do and this
Mhm.
show. Those of you that are listening, and which is funny because the one that I picked out is bread related. Today's recipe postcard
Ooh.
is scones. And so if you leave a comment, you will be in the running for getting this beautiful postcard sent to you. And so w- I just want to finish up with one last important question, and that is when you're having this delicious potato meal on Mars
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and you're sitting there, what do you want to drink with it?
Oh, I'm gonna hope that they learn how to bring red wine from Earth because I love me some red wine. If they can get me a really nice Merlot to Mars, I think that would be a perfect evening.
I interviewed Chris Carberry, who is Explore Mars, and
Mhm.
he came out with the book for alcohol in space. And so,
Oh, I saw that. I still haven't ordered it, but I want it so
yes.
badly.
And so I'm like right with you. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
and so it's fun to talk to him about
Mhm.
how alcohol has always been a part of humanity, humans
Oh, yeah.
everywhere we've gone. So it's going to be with us in space. And as we go to the moon and
Yeah.
Mars, it's just what form will it take, right?
Definitely. I was reading the Lady Astronaut series recently, an amazing book series about like an alternate history where we're in space by 2000 and living on other planets. It's amazing.
I don't know
But part
that.
of it was that they were making alcohol on the moon secretively. So all these government employees were figuring how to ferment. And I was just like, yeah, that's totally realistic.
Okay. The name of this is?
The Lady Astronaut series. Basically, a meteor comes and hits the Earth in around 1960, I think. So instead of the space race and landing on the moon, they decide that they have to colonize the moon and Mars right away.
Oh, I cannot wait to read this. And it's funny
Oh,
because
it was so much fun.
thinking about we're coming up on the first female in space and
Mhm.
Valentina Tereskova and thinking about the legacy of women in space and
Mhm.
celebrating that to some extent and watching the history with the Mercury 13 and how long it took
Mhm.
for the US to fly the first female in space and just what if? What if we had sent some of the Mercury 13 up? or integrated
How would
them.
history have changed if just a few things had gone differently?
Right.
The
If
good news is we
yeah,
have the chance this time.
we do, and I think with people like you leading the charge for the new space, I'm very hopeful, and I just wanna thank you for coming on the show and sharing everything that you've been doing.
Yes. Thank
Will
you so
you
much for inviting me.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure, and I can't wait to meet you in person. Will
I
you
know, we
please
have such a long distance friendship now.
I know, it's so true. It's like, oh, but that's the thing about it is that connecting digitally and then meeting in
Mhm.
person, there's just it adds a really interesting special difference to the relationship. And it makes me again hopeful for when we have the opportunity to hang out. At CU Boulder is
Yeah.
great. I remember
Come visit, come take a vacation here.
I definitely will. I actually played ice hockey there when I was
Ooh.
playing ice hockey when I was in graduate school going through my Ph.D. And I
Oh, that's
remember,
so
I don't know
cool.
if it's the same, but you would go into the rec center, there was a
Mhm.
climbing wall, and then upstairs
Mhm.
was an hockey rink. Is
Yeah,
it
no, they have, ice skating rinks and stuff too, it's crazy, the rec center is massive here.
Yeah, I know, and I loved it. I was like, "Why did I not know about this school?" You know? This school is amazing.
Why did no one tell me about this school for undergrad? Like, I would have applied. Ugh,
I
I was such an
know.
East Coast kid, I didn't think about going west.
I me too, East Coast. I grew up in the
Yeah.
Northeast, and it wasn't until
Same.
grad school where I was like, Arizona? I'm going out there. There's sunshine. I don't have to shovel sunshine."
Yes.
Where did
Yes.
where did you grow up?
Springfield, Massachusetts.
I lived in Nashua, New Hampshire for 7 years but graduated high
Okay.
school from upstate New York. Mhm.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can people follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, so I am pretty active on Instagram right now. It's kind of a personal slash work account that I mix together. I'm not officially a space presence anywhere yet, but you can find me at space underscore Shayna or at Shayna.Hume on Twitter. I use both of those handles on different social medias. And for any of the people commenting, I see a bunch more questions popping up in the chat. I am so happy to talk with you guys about books or anything else afterwards if you want to reach out.
Yeah, and so thank you again for everybody who has jumped on and got a comment, and Shayna, it's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for running the series. I've loved watching them, and now I've loved being on one.
Okay, everybody, see you tomorrow for one more Space Snacks, and I hope you will join us. Bye.
Bye.